Legal disclaimer. The information provided during this seminar is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. The presenters are not licensed medical professionals unless explicitly stated otherwise. All discussions, suggestions, and recommendations are based on personal experiences, research, and knowledge of natural remedies. Participants are advised to consult with a qualified healthcare provider or medical professional before making any changes to their diet, lifestyle, or healthcare regimen, including the use of natural remedies discussed during the seminar. Individual results may vary, and the information provided may not be suitable for every individual. By attending this seminar, participants acknowledge and agree that 1. The presenters and organizers shall not be held responsible or liable for any outcomes, direct or indirect, resulting from the use or misuse of the information presented. 2. Attendance and participation in this seminar do not establish a doctor-patient or professional-client relationship between participants and the presenters. 3. The use of the information provided is at the participant's own discretion and risk. This seminar is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. All information is shared in good faith, and participants are encouraged to exercise personal judgment and seek professional advice as needed. But, we pray that you will seek be the great physician, and not the witch doctors of Babylon, that cut, burn, and poison the body temple. Revelation 18 verse 23.
I would go to the medicine cabinet and get out the pills and think to myself, if a headache is simply a lack of Excedrin, why don't I have a headache?
The average American is only drinking this amount of water. The average person in China who only drinks 4% of what they need, so about 3/4 of the way. That's how much water the average person in China is drinking.
In taking those 3 needle biopsies of my thyroid, they ascertained that I had cancer, but they couldn't tell what it was.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before you thanking and praising and blessing you for the Sabbath day. And as we study about our health and the herbs and how they can help us and the source of drugs, we just pray, Father, that you will guide and direct in our study and our discussion, and we thank you for your leading and directing. Bless us and help us to walk with you faithfully in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Oh, I have this first. Explanations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I've been getting some emails and letters and calls about some things I said a week or so ago on our sickness, health and healing topics. And that was that I stated that there are 3 main causes of sickness: the bacterias, the viruses, and the fungus. And I've been called on that several different ways by several different people. Those are the main causes. Yes, there's others, and we'll go over those quickly.
Subcategories.
But we were trying to be general, not go down to the minutia of it, but just so that you can understand what we meant. We are going to specify here. So when we say there's 3 causes of sickness, bacteria. The bacteria are also protozoans. They cause malaria, sleeping sickness, spotted tick fever, giardia, polio, etc.
And they also can be protozoans can be a virus.
Yeah.
They're very, very small.
Well, I don't know. I'd have to go back to my books. It's been a long time since I looked at that. But bacteria is like strep throat bacteria, salmonella, typhoid, cholera, syphilis. Seems like I thought of another one yesterday and I can't think of it now. So I never wrote it down this morning either. Then So bacteria are different entities that can invade us, and most of the time they're carried by insects. An insect host carries that, or the protozoa actually. But viruses, when Mark asked a physician why he had not told us that I had cancer because I had parasites or worms, he just grinned and he said, Mark, if I told you that you had worms, he said, you'd probably deck me. And Mark said, well, maybe, yeah. Because that doesn't go over with people very nicely when you say you've got worms. I've had people tell me I do not, but they have. You cannot get cancer unless you have parasites in your system. A lot of diseases, the underlying cause is parasites in the system. Yes. So what the doctors call a parasite is a virus. Now, there are viruses that are not parasites, but they include parasites under the viral category. When they tell you you have a flu bug, that's a parasite, okay, many times. So, or the complications of having some sort of parasite in your system. So roundworm, pinworm, which cause urinary tract infections, by the way, duodenal worms, tapeworms, ringworm, trichinosa worms. Those are the ones that live in your skin, in your muscles, and cause a lot of skin eruptions and muscle. I remember one time we went to a lady's house. It was absolutely filthy. She had animal fecal matter all over her furniture because she had a whole bunch of little Chihuahua dogs that she raised. And she had called us over because she was suffering with a rare skin disease, and I don't remember the name of it that they told her, but she looked absolutely horrible. Her skin was really pasty, and yet she had these eruptions that were just red and angry, and they looked like a cross between zits and boils and burn.
Yeah.
And she sat us down and talked with us, and she says, I know somebody told me that I had worms, and they told me to call you because of your cancer experience, and that you would believe me. She says, I've been trying to tell the doctor and they don't believe me. Well, the reason she believed she had worms was because she would these areas of angry red infections would get to itching really bad, and so she'd scratch them and then they would burn like fire. And so she had gone to putting iodine on them, and or was it betadine? No, it was iodine, wasn't it?
Yes.
So she'd paint herself with these with this iodine, and also the stuff you put on gentian violet.
Yes.
Gentian violet. Because she had purple spots on her as well as the iodine spots. But she told us that one day she was on the phone and her leg was hurting really bad, and so she was putting the gentian violet on it because that spot was purple. Mm-hmm. And she's talking on the phone, and she looked back down, and there's a little worm about 1.5 inches from the abscess, and it's all purple. And it was itching its way across her leg, and she said, I screamed, and I called my husband, and he said, oh, that, I don't know where that came from, but that probably didn't come out of you, because she was like, look, it came out of here, over here, and because by then it was way down her leg, and he's like, nah, and she says, look, it's purple. I put it on the spot, and it came out after, and I actually got the purple on it. And her husband said, wow, okay, you should call those people. So she had called us, and we put her on a parasite cleanse. But then we told her, nothing's going to happen really drastic unless you have a cleaning company come in and clean up all the fecal matter and et cetera in this house.
I was sitting on that couch as we were talking with her, and it was
really dark in there.
It was really dark. The carpet, everything was dark. After our eyes finally adjusted so we could see something, it was to my right. Melanie was to my left, like this, and I turned to my right and looked, and there was a dog pile
right
on the floor. right,
one on the
right
edge of the couch.
Yeah, right on the edge of the couch too.
And we stood up. From then on, we wouldn't sit down. We were like, no, we're not going to sit down.
But by the way, she did listen.
And
She did a parasite
well.
cleanse, and she ripped the curtains down, she brought in a cleaning company that came in and literally just stripped the inside of that house out.
And redid it.
And her husband
Started over.
wanted her health bad so much that they believed us, and they let in the sunshine, they cleaned things up, and she got well.
Yes.
It was one of those success stories, even though it was kind of a gross one to start with. So anyway, back to...
And then the third thing that causes sickness is the fungus, which some people call molds. And of course, those grow really well in radiation, high radiation, which we're living under now with G5, etc. So those are rampant. And a lot of people are having a hard time with symptoms of sickness, which are caused by the molds that are they're living in the environment with. So how do we get rid of protozoa like malaria, the bacteria type infections that are caused by the mosquito? Well, peach leaves.
Yeah.
Peach leaves, echinacea, wormwood tea is what we put Matt on once we came back from Kenya in 2014. And we'd nearly lost him in Kenya. And we gave him peach leaf, echinacea, wormwood tea. And he wanted to drink it. Even after he got well, he wanted to stay on it 2 months. And so he kept himself on it. Half a gallon, 3/4 of a gallon.
A day.
For about 2 months, I believe it was.
This is a gallon right here. That's a gallon. So he was drinking half to 3/4 of this. Later, to start with, he was drinking a whole one of these. Trust me, wormwood is not... That was not a peppermint blend that was wonderful.
No,
it was very, very nasty.
Wormwood is very bitter. The Bible, it's so bitter, it's mentioned in the Bible. Bitter as wormwood. So it was mentioned in a letter to me that I didn't understand that liver flukes cause a lot of disease. Well, liver flukes we put in the category of a parasite or a worm. A virus, a worm. Even though they're round and flat, they are a sucking type
parasitic type
worm
infection.
We've seen them a lot being on the ranch for 4 years with the sheep. They're easily picked up from one sheep to another, and they cause liver damage.
I have literally seen liver flukes coming out of sheep
that were the size
like
of $half.
Inch and a half long.
Yeah.
They're kind of shaped like pear, almost, well, not pear-shaped, just kind of pointed on each end and rounded and literally that big. I mean, some of them are huge, and they don't have to be that big. We have also identified them from people that were the size of like the fingernail on your little finger.
Right. Well, I've seen some as big as thumbnail size come out of the one lady that had sickness or that had cancer. I stand to believe, I don't know if this individual that wrote to me does, but I believe that you can get rid of liver flukes and the damage they've done to the liver, because the liver is reconstituting itself all the time. In 7 weeks, they say you have a new liver if you give your body the right tools to work with. So I believe that damage can be reversed and it can be healed. Liver flukes, how to kill them: black walnut hulls, cloves, and wormwood. And standard parasite cleanse, and then do the liver gallbladder flush at the end, which we have. If you go to Testimony Press website and go to the health page in the drop-down menu, that's on that health page is the parasite or the liver gallbladder flush. Follow the instructions carefully, or you could pass out from pain. You've got to take the Epsom salts if you want to open and leave and relax the doorways to the gallbladder and the liver, so that when you pass stones or sledge, it doesn't cause pain enough to cause you to pass out.
Okay, I'm going to take them over here. This is our Testimony Press website. And you'll see I've just clicked on the Good Health page.
By the way, I took that picture of those gallstones Some of those things are as large as a pencil
Right
eraser. That came out of a lady that was with us, staying with us to get rid of cancer, bowel cancer. So they're large. They look like rocks. They are rocks.
They're very hard sometimes.
Yeah, they come out. After this, she could eat food without getting an upset system.
If you, let me take that back to there. So if you click on it, there's, of course, we have to put disclaimers on all of this stuff, or
because they say we know nothing because we didn't go to school to be physicians.
So here's
life
the
experience doesn't matter.
instructions for the gallbladder liver flush, and we've got pictures and all of the instructions.
More green stones that
more
came
stones,
out of somebody. More stones.
More stones.
Everything that floats comes from above the small intestine. So if you do this liver gallbladder flush and you lose a lot of disgusting looking stuff in the toilet, everything that is floating came from above the small intestine. Because in your in the preparation, you're drinking a 1/2 to 3/4 cup of olive oil because the liver cannot detox without oil. So you drink that with the grapefruit juice, and it will clean all of this stuff out. I have literally seen like stalactite looking, and I didn't save a picture of that because this happened before cell phones. But we had a man we took care of who had drunk terribly. He drunk like a fish in his life, and he was suffering a lot from liver damage and stuff. And so we put him through the program, and when we put him on this liver gallbladder flush, he had things come out that were about this long, and some of them were orange and some of them were brown and some of them were tending toward green, and they looked like stalactites that you would see in a cave. And I asked a doctor about it later. I said, what are they? I actually fished some out of the toilet and put them in a Ziploc bag and took them to a friend of ours that was a physician. He said, "Where did you get that?" And I said, out of the toilet bowl. I had a guy there that lost these. And he said, "That's cirrhosis of the liver. How did you get rid of that?" And I said, "Well, I just gave him this." He said, No. He says, "You know where I've seen those? When I was in med school and we cut open cadavers, drunks." He says, "That's the only time I've ever seen some of those." He says, "I can't believe you got these out of a toilet. They just don't fall out of somebody." And I said, "Well, here's how I did it." And he said, "Okay, really?" And I said, "Yeah, that's how I just gave him this juice and this olive oil, and he
didn't have a choice but to believe us because we had
I
proof.
The evidence. He actually kept the evidence. He took it and said, I gotta see that. So, yes. So the Hohenflyer. What Hohenflyer? Oh. Sorry, I shifted gears.
Right.
Where'd I put it? No,
Not that
yeah. It's the one we already did. The Hohenflyer. If I can find it, I'll give it to you. Okay, this one. It's called The New Church. And it's flyer number 580, January 21, 1984.
You showed them that.
Yeah, somebody's asking for it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm trying to keep up on this.
Trying to keep up on the side as well. Okay.
Okay. Yes, this will work for a person who has no gallbladder.
Because it flushes the liver.
Because it flushes the liver. See, the gallbladder is simply the storage tank for the bile. The liver is constantly making bile, which if your liver is weak and you've had your gallbladder removed, then you'd better make sure that you're taking milk thistle seeds and chewing them well with your more oily food, your fried foods, which are harder on the liver.
A person that has no gallbladder will have one of two problems. They'll be either constipated where it takes 10 sticks of dynamite to move them, or they will be so loose stooled that they've gone to wearing a diaper because they
Well, at
just
least that was in the olden days. I think they
Yeah.
have drugs. That
they've
can
got
help
drugs
maybe.
that kind of help
Right.
compensate for that now, but without the
So
drugs.
yes,
Okay,
this
are
will
you,
help. So
you've got that list, so we
back
can move on
to-
to the herbs.
back to this, we can get rid of parasites. I had an individual on the phone, and they said, "Well, that's impossible to get rid of all the parasites." No, it's not impossible. And there's a list: garlic powder, tansy, hibiscus flower, tea tree oil, cinnamon bark, burdock root, dandelion root, rhubarb root, fenugreek seeds, marshmallow root, hyssop root and leaf, knotweed, sage leaf, gentian, all of those with your 3 black walnut hulls, cloves, and wormwood help take out all the worms, whether roundworms, pinworms, duodenal worms, tapeworms, ringworms, trichinosa, hookworms, liver flukes. We've seen them all come out.
The life
So-
cycle, the longest life cycle of any parasite is 30 days. No, that list is not on our website as well. The list is not there. I just say get in touch with us.
Get in touch with us. So
So when you're doing a parasite cleanse, you need to do it at least 30 days. And the reason for that is because as these parasites are dying off, they tend to, there's the eggs, things that are hatching out.
It takes 28 days for, I think it's the liver flukes to hatch.
Longest life cycle.
yeah.
So if you're not on it for 30 days, you have
A new crop coming.
you have a new crop coming in. So you take it, there are parasite cleanses out there that are literally, they say 3-day parasite cleanse. It's like, okay, great. And it may work, it may kill those parasites that are currently living, but it's not going to kill those that aren't living yet in the aspect of that are in eggs and haven't come forth yet.
You might have some that are in 3 days they're going to hatch, and more hatch in 15 days, and more hatch in 30 days. And so you might feel good for a while, but then as you get those hatchings going on, and then the living and breeding and making more, you're going to quickly go down again. So you need to stay on it.
We had a lady with cancer that she's like, I have been through 4 or 5 cleanses. I don't have parasites there. I know that's not the issue anymore. And Melanie said, humor me and do it anyway, please. And she complied.
So
and
humor me.
3 days into the parasite cleanse, we hear a scream from the bathroom, and Melanie goes to see what's going on, and
she also started blowing them out of her nose.
she was losing parasites like you wouldn't believe.
So, and to clarify, back to these emails and stuff I've been getting, there are other causes of sickness. And I will just say that now so that people won't say, oh, there's more than just that make us sick, because this is coming back to us. Overeating is a cause for sickness. Eating in between meals is a cause for sickness. Improper diet, and I'll give you an example. I had a friend who was a student nurse. She was trying to save all the money she could, working hard to pay off her bill because her parents couldn't help her and she wanted to get through. So she went and bought Top Ramen by the case, and that's all she ate was TR noodles. That's all she ate for 2 years.
Top Ramen, yeah.
In 2 years' time, she had breast cancer and was sicker than sick. Why? Because Top Ramen noodles are refined flour, and there's no vitamins, there's no mineral content in it. It's just a tummy filler. And so her body quickly broke down at 22 years of age. Her body quickly broke down, and she got sick with breast cancer.
So between the stress of
Between
being
the
a
stress
student
of working and being a
working, yes, exactly, and poor diet,
poor diet for 2 years. Yeah.
she went down.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark,
Yes.
I want to add to the testimony of the liver cleanse. By the way, the woman noodles probably have MSG in their flavor
Definitely.
packet too, which is really bad for you.
Yeah.
But when I did that liver cleanse, well, as a kid, I'd eat what they call jawbreakers, which was a super hard candy, and they were different colors, but after you suck on it for a while, they would all turn white. And that's what my gallstones looked like. And some of them were a ½ inch, some of them 3/4 of an inch big.
Wow.
I must have had 15 or 20 of them.
Wow.
And that had to do a lot of good for my body to get that out of there.
Yes, for sure. It does. So back to other causes of sickness. Not enough water causes stroke-like symptoms. Too much oil, salt, sugar, or cooked foods, or refined grains and sugars. Lack of sunlight, lack of exercise, lack of fresh air, and lack of rest. All of those can cause cancer. So prayerfully, you won't think I know nothing. I'm still learning, of course, but yeah. Hopefully
Our
that
reason for
clarifies.
mentioning the bacteria or fungus, the viruses, and the can't even say it now. Fungus.
Bacteria, virus, and fungus.
Yeah, bacteria,
Those
virus,
three.
fungus is because those are the outside influences that affect us.
Right.
The fact of me not getting
Mark?
enough exercise. Hang on half a second. Thing of me not getting enough exercise, that's an inside influence. That's for me doing it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys
Molly?
are familiar at all with the use of turpentine as a cleanse.
Yes, it's a parasite cleanse. We have taken that.
And Terry?
Terry?
Yes,
Should be great.
those things that you mentioned on the different diets and the things that you shouldn't do, is that what causes these parasites to get inside of you?
No. What causes parasites? Number
Breathing.
one, breathing.
They're in the air.
Eating. And so in other
They're
words,
in dust, like dust. You know, you
They're
breathe
airborne.
a bunch of dust. They can be in the dust.
they are in and on food. That's why you have gone to the hydrogen peroxide rinse. That helps. That's not 100% cure, but that definitely does help limit that.
So you're talking about rinsing all your vegetables with that?
Yes. All the fresh vegetables.
Even if you grow them in your own garden.
Well, are you using some sort of manure to grow them in?
No.
Okay. It's possible there's still some there, but it's greatly removed
It's greatly reduced.
as
Yeah,
far as the
yeah.
chances of picking up parasitic infections. But if you
So
so
the hydrogen peroxide doesn't eliminate the vitamins in the vegetables?
No. And we're talking about food, just to specify, you may know that, but 35% food grade hydrogen peroxide is what we're speaking of. We're not talking about the 3% brown bottle from Walmart. We're talking about the food grade when we say hydrogen peroxide. The 3% brown bottle product has stabilizers in it, and those can be very unhealthy. We also can pick up.
You dilute your hydrogen peroxide? Do you dilute it?
Oh yes.
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 That's a couple of times ago. We're not going to go back there today, but we spent a lot of time talking about hydrogen peroxide and what to do. Anybody ever heard of getting the flu bug or flu virus? Is that something that we've all heard of? So, and how do those get transmitted? Through the air, or they tell us be careful, wash your hands. There's a reason why they tell us that, because that virus can be, we sneeze, achoo! You sneeze in your hands, wipe it off, go your way, and 3 minutes later you shake somebody's hand, and you just transmitted it to there. Then she rubs her face because her nose itched, and I just transmitted my parasites to her by hand and to her, and then she rubs her face, it goes on in, she breathes in, and in it goes. And so these things are, so in other words, if you're alive or dead, actually, you have parasites. This is something that we have to do, that we have to cleanse.
When we moved to the ranch in 2000, we would be on a vehicle or the three-wheeler or horses pushing sheep up in the lane to get them into the barn. And the dust was swirling around, and we're breathing all that. Well, we hadn't been there long, and we all went down sick.
Really
Real sick. Now, that was abnormal because we had not, we as a family, we hadn't had sickness in our house for what, 7 years? About 7 years?
Yeah.
And we just didn't get the cold. We didn't get flus because we were trying to live the 10 laws of health. And so we were really concerned about this. Why would we be so sick? And the boss came down and Mark says, we're all sick. I don't know what's wrong. We just never get sick. And he laughed and he says, oh, I know what it is.
He says, you have E. coli.
He says, you have E. coli he says,
you've been breathing all the dust, all the fecal matter dust out there.
From the sheep.
And he says, but don't worry. He says,
you'll never get it again.
He says, 3 days. He says, you'll be immune to it and you'll be fine.
And we were.
It went, well, I'm telling you what, talk about sick. Boy, that was miserable. And we were piling in herbs, and it may have helped a little, but it had to run its course. And it took us better part of 3 or 4 days before we felt like people again. And it went away. So anyway, finally. But, yeah, and E. coli is a virus.
So we have a question here. It says, I used to eat everything. I gave up all flesh, soda, coffee, sugar, cheese. Hallelujah. Cheese should never, it's not fit for the human stomach, etc. What kind of vitamins should I take?
Let food be your medicine.
Let food be your medicine. If you're eating carrots, you're getting vitamin A, etc., etc.
Well, I'll tell you what.
And if you want,
let's move on to this,
okay,
because I'm going to give an example.
Because this also, and this is why herbs are so important. They're packed with minerals, and of course some of the vitamins as well.
But before we get to this, we promised them last week, and yeah, we've already been going for 40 minutes and haven't even gotten to it yet. We promised you we'd give you 10 herbs for your emergency medicine, which this is one of them that we have here. So we'll talk about it. But we want to go to these 10, and I wrote them out so you can all see it that are on by computer. So there's the 10 things that you need to have as emergency medicine. Cayenne, Chaparral, which is the one we're going to talk about today. Cloves, comfrey, garlic, onion, peppermint, slippery elm, and yarrow. Now, I'll leave that up for those that are writing. There are more herbs than that. There are way more herbs than that. And there's some that we have that are favorites. Melanie has talked about several parasitic killing herbs that are favorites. And we've talked about, in the previous couple of times, we've talked about mullein and lobelia. But, and our herb cabinet's got a whole lot more than 10 herbs in it. But we've got all 10 of these, and we keep them on hand so that if something happens, and we've learned them well, so if something happens and we have a need, we can go back to these and use them. So we want to talk about the Chaparral today. And I'm going to go to the little book that we've shared with you all, which is the Health Handbook, Louise Tenney. And for those that have gotten the book or looking for it, page 165. Page 165 of this book is on Chaparral. And the reason I said, with answering her question about the vitamins, let's go to to our herb. So I'm going to go to that right now. Vitamin and mineral content for Chaparral. And you know, maybe we should turn on the scanner. We've not done it yet. We could let them see what it the plant that it's looking like. By the way, chaparral is something that grows in Arizona. It is a great large bush, especially in the spring. If you go to Arizona in the springtime and it's right after a rain, you smell the smell of the air. If you're not in the city and smelling smog, you are smelling chaparral. That's what you smell. And you can go get chaparral off of the plants any time of year. It is actually a perennial, a large perennial bush, and it grows. But what I want to go with this for vitamin and mineral content for chaparral, and we're going to give you a lot of the things that chaparral can do for us. So vitamin and mineral content. It is high in vitamin A. So do I need a vitamin A supplement, or can I take chaparral for that? Obviously chaparral. It's high in calcium, selenium, contains moderate amounts of vitamin C. It has protein, magnesium, potassium, iron, manganese, small amounts of phosphorus, sodium, zinc. There's that big zinc that everybody was talking about back with the couple of years ago with the big C problem. Has zinc and B complex vitamins. So a small amount of the B complex. So we get all of that just out of chaparral. So now I want to take you to some of the things that it's used for. It helps the stomach.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is it the leaves or the flowers?
Yes, and the
Or
seeds.
the root?
And the seeds. It's leaves, stems, flowers, and the seed. Yeah. So it's not the root in this case. Okay. It's the plant. In fact, as I'm looking here, I can actually see pieces of stem in our jar here. Yeah. Little short pieces. You want to flip
you're
on
right.
that?
I see that it's spelled wrong on the...
Did I spell something wrong?
No. I spelled it wrong on my jar. They said, look at the jar. It's spelled wrong.
Oh.
2 R's, 1 L. And yes, you're right. We can't count.
There's
ginger. We missed the ginger. You only had 9 on there, honey.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Okay. I was doing it in a hurry before we got started here.
He's
turn on the switch back there for the scanner. We'll get that brought up. Oh yeah, it's very acrid. Oh, there's a big stick. I don't know how many can see the. Here, lay that in there just so you can see that it's partly the stem too. Okay, that's on. So visual presenter. I'll get it brought up here. I should have had this turned on.
We didn't think we were going to need it today.
Nope. Okay, slide it down towards me just a little bit. Okay. There you go. There you go. Perfect.
There's that stem he was
There's
holding
that big
up.
stem I held up that wasn't so visible. So there's the chaparral. This would be what would be called cut and sifted. So anyway, back to the list of things, what it does. By the way, it does smell like creosote. Yeah. Reminds me of tasting like it, but and we'll talk about how to prepare it.
Do you drink it as a tea?
Yes.
Yes. It's made as a tea, and we'll talk about how to do that.
And listen carefully.
Yes.
Because we did it wrong.
If you do it as a decoction, which is boil it and cook it down, it will make you puking sick. Not because it's bad, but because it will detox you so hard, so fast, in so many different ways that you will think that it is the worst herb on the planet, and Mark and Melanie have absolutely lost their minds. So we will, interesting. So it's in Walla Walla. Graybills say we have it all over our yard.
No, they're in Arizona right now.
Oh, they're in Arizona?
Aren't you?
Oh, that's right. They're in Arizona, right? Yeah. They went there. I forgot.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, it grows. Yeah, it's there. Anyway, so here's some more of the things. You might want to gather a bunch of that while you're there. It would be better in the spring, but it's not bad right now. It definitely works yet. So anyway, it has a general effect on the whole body. It fights bacteria, viruses, parasites, internally and externally. You can use this stuff on the inside and the outside. Example, outside, ringworm. Anyway, I'm skipping over some of the things that are here. It is the best herbal antibiotic. And everybody goes, wow, I thought Goldenseal was the best. Yeah, well, this is way cheaper.
Yeah. Well,
and it is a very powerful, way cheaper than Goldenseal, I'm saying. And it's a very powerful antibiotic. It has a definite cancer potential, meaning not giving you cancer, but decreasing or killing cancer, and decreasing tumors and leukemia.
That's because it's high in vitamin C and it's a parasitic
Killer. Exactly. It also takes drugs out of the system, especially LSD. You want to detox from some of this stuff that you did when you were young and foolish. Ailments. It helps. So here we go. Long list of ailments. This is all things it helps with. And
blood and lymph purifier.
So acne, allergies, arthritis, backaches, that is chronic. It's a blood purifier. It helps with boils.
That's because boils are eruptions from toxic blood.
Correct. It helps the bowels, the lower bowel. It helps with bruises used externally. Bursitis, that would also be an external, but clear the bursitis is caused by an internal problem and or a strain sometimes. So internal, external. Cancer.
You said that one.
Oh, sorry.
Chemical
Cataracts, colds, cuts, eczema. It strengthens the eyes, using it internally because it's a blood cleanser. Hemorrhoids, kidney infection, leukemia, prostate, psoriasis, respiratory system issues, rheumatism, stomach disorders, tumors, a prolapsed uterus, venereal disease, and wounds. Those are to name just a few. We've got another book
yeast
here.
Yeast infections.
Poisoning,
poison oak and ivy.
It kills funguses dead. Make a poultice of this stuff, put it on your feet, and drink it as the tea. It will tell you how to make the tea in a bit, and you'll take care of athlete's foot.
Helps in alcoholism too.
Yeah, I think the most powerful thing with Chaparral is if you have ever had pharmaceutical drugs or over-the-counter drugs or illegal drugs, it will cleanse the residue of that out of your system to the point. I was reading a testimony in one of the books that we have. I don't know, is it right there? Okay, so I'll just read it instead of trying to share it. So it says here, if this, let's see here, I wanted to make sure this was the one I was thinking of. Well, it's a good one anyway. I don't remember if it was the one I was thinking of.
This is the one where he downed the whole thing after he let it set to him. He did it wrong, like we did.
This is the one he did it. No, the one I was thinking of, I wanted to share, and maybe I'll just tell it since I don't remember. I didn't actually mark. This book has numerous different testimonies that while using Chaparral, doing a 21-day cleanse with Chaparral, and we'll talk about that in a moment, it literally, as you are cleansing it out, cleansing stuff out of your body, you will have, he was telling about a student that had been heavily on illegal drugs and also on alcohol. And he had left all of that, then, and was married, doing well, ended up going through a divorce and went back to that in his time of trial. Now, we're not talking about a Christian person, I don't believe. We're just talking about a person that was in this school, this training. And he does the Chaparral cleanse, the 21-day cleanse with the Chaparral. As he was doing that, a few days into the cleanse, he started getting cravings for alcohol. And then memories were coming to his mind of things that happened during that time. He went through, he says, I would go into absolute, just total depression. But it would only last for sometimes a few hours or a day, and then it was gone and it was on to something else. And he says the only thing, the instructor here says the only thing, and I've seen this over and over through the years, the only thing I can think of is all of these memories that are attached to all of these toxins that are in the body that are being purged out are being replayed through the mind as these toxins leave. So if you start doing a Chaparral cleanse and if you start doing the Chaparral cleanse and all of a sudden you're getting a craving for something you've done in the past that you don't want to go there and do that again, just know, hang tough, hang in there for, it probably won't last more than a day or two, depending on how long that memory is, and it will clear it out in it, and it's not the length of time. It's so in other words, if you did hardcore drugs for 10 years of your life, you're not going to suffer with this memories for 10 years and craving for 10 years. You're not going to have to go through that whole, it's going to be a short, quick out. As long as that is being cleansed out, which the Chaparral takes care of it in a quick hurry, this stuff is going to cleanse out, go away. But you could have some cravings and some cleansings of things that in that cleansing process. So I do want to read this one Melanie pointed out. This is the instructor that was doing this. He says, if this tea is prepared so as to be too strong, you will end up with a brew that my students would describe as Gagsville. Once in my enthusiasm, I let my Chaparral tea sit out too long in the Arizona sun. So he made a sun tea with it, and sun extracted tea, and he did it too long. The extracted terpenols or oils floating on the top of it looked strong enough to clean a paintbrush. Being the adventurous sort, I thought, I'll drink it anyway. So I downed the cup. I downed a cup. Not a good idea. I quickly learned that this concentrated form in such a substantial dose did not respect my stomach or liver. I paid for my stronger is better, thinking with a headache, a few hours of nausea, and I was told by friends a wild, crazed look in my eyes until the next day. The moral of the story is, if stronger Chaparral brew is ever needed, an infusion, always take it in small doses, he says 2 ounces or less, at regular intervals. But from everything of our reading and studying and research with Chaparral, and it's not one we've actually used much, but I plan on starting this 21-day cleanse that I just mentioned because of a fungal issue that I have been battling for a long time and haven't been able to beat. So,
we have a question here.
Oh, do we have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead while I'm looking for the 21-day cleanse.
First it says it's called a creosote bush and smells like petroleum. Yes, it's also called the greasewood bush or black bush or grease bush. So the question is asked, can someone with hyperthyroidism use Chaparral? That I'm not certain of. I've looked in a couple places here, and it does. I did find online where a lady who had hypothyroidism, where the thyroid is very sluggish and slow, Chaparral helped quicken it up. If this is anything like lobelia, it would balance it out so that you're not hyper. But I would say be careful if you test it, so that you don't drive yourself beyond where you want to go with hyperthyroid.
Keep it weak.
I'm amazed that you're hyperthyroid, because most of Americans, with all the onslaught we're under, are hypothyroid. In other words, their thyroids don't work real well.
So I knew this was going to happen. I was just waiting to see who was going to be first. Jim said, please cite the book title. So this book title is actually
Called
10 Essential Herbs.
And Mark missed ginger.
And I missed the ginger on the list.
Ginger's on the list that you need to add to your 10 essentials.
And so the one I'm sharing from right now that I was reading this story from and whatnot it's called 10 Essential Herbs. There we go. Put it in the camera so you can see the cover.
So they want to know how to make the 3-day chaparral?
Yep.
Are you going to put that here?
It's Holmes Press. I was just going to read it. I guess we could put it on the
Why don't
scanner.
you put it on the scanner so they can take pictures of it?
Okay.
And then they can. And then they've got it, huh?
Okay. Let me see if I can bring it up just a little more.
You can read it off there while they're taking pictures of it.
So, 21-day Chaparral cleanse. Put 1 teaspoon Chaparral, not powdered, in a cup. So, like the form that we've showed here in the picture. Add 1 cup of very warm but not boiling pure water. And from reading other things in his publication and otherwise, I would say you could boil the water, but let it cool off just a bit so that it's definitely not at a boiling point when you use it. Cover and let stand overnight. Strain out the chaparral and drink the remaining liquid on an empty stomach. So 1 cup, we're talking. First thing in the morning, do not throw the chaparral away. Cover it again immediately with 1 cup of very warm water and leave it until the next morning, when you will again strain it and drink the liquid first thing on an empty stomach. I don't know about empty stomach on that one. That's a tough one.
Brother Mark, we're not seeing this screen.
Oh, sorry. Melanie put it up there, but I forgot to push the button so that the screen is there. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me. I'm looking at the computer. I can see it. I forgot to push the button to set it up for you all. Yes.
Mark, why not the powder?
It's too concentrated.
Powdered, it would be too concentrated. So you could have used the powder, but you would want to use a much smaller amount.
And also for this 21-day cleanse, as we continue on here on the next page, you'll see that out of these stems and leaves, you're pulling different compositions of stuff in the 3-day using of the same herb.
I'm just going to recap it while I have this up here. So day 1, we're using a teaspoon with a cup of hot water on it. Now this would be for 1 person. And if you're a little nervous about it, do half. Try it and see.
Make it weak.
Make it weaker. So you make your tea for day 1. You do it before you go to bed. You do it in the evening. Cover and let it stand overnight. So before you go to bed, you do this. Let it strain out the chaparral in the morning. Drink the remaining liquid on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. Do not throw the chaparral that you just used away. Cover it again immediately with 1 cup of warm water and leave it until the next morning. So now that one gets to sit essentially 24 hours. But it's the herb that you've already used from the previous day. And again, in the morning, strain it and drink the herb, the water, the liquid, and do it again. Do the 3rd day. For a 3rd time, cover the same chaparral herbs with 1 cup of very warm water. Let it sit covered until the next day. Strain out the herb, drink it the first thing on an empty stomach. After this 3rd use, throw the herb away. In the evening of the 3rd cup day, start the process over again with a fresh teaspoon of chaparral and use that teaspoon of herb for 3 cups of tea as you did before. Continue this process for 21 days. So
now he tells why.
Now he tells the why of it here. You can expect a slow and steady cleansing and strengthening of the blood and all its support systems, especially liver, kidneys, and lymph. You notice that the flavor and aroma of the tea gets lighter on each succeeding day of the 3-day cycle, but don't be fooled into thinking that it is less potent. The properties of the chaparral are being extracted in different combinations during the cycle, which means a more balanced overall use. So things that you're getting on day 3 are different than you were getting on day 1 as you've been extracting these things out of this herb for this 3-day process. Keep reading there. Yeah. So a student of mine found...
anytime. I moved the book up.
Okay. Anytime you're cleansing the body of toxic buildup, especially as in the 21-day cleanse described here, there are usually emotional counterparts and memories that have been locked into the tissues which are cleansed along with the physical poisons. It is not uncommon to re-experience memories and emotions that were present when the toxins were first introduced into the system. That's what I was explaining that I couldn't remember where it was at. A student of mine once found himself spontaneously reliving the emotions and memories of a traumatic breakup of a relationship from several years ago. During that critical time, he had also indulged in alcohol, caffeine, and tobacco during the 21-day Chaparral cleanse, and this can happen with any potent blood cleansing. He was surprised with a brief replay of sadness, tears, and frequent memories from the past experience. During this emotional replay, he detected the odors of and cravings for those substances he had abused during that time. My observation was that these substances were now cleansing from his blood and tissues. In my teaching of herbistry, I call this process retracing. Chaparral is a prime mover in this process. While retracing is not always observable, I believe it is going on subtly nonetheless. If you notice it, I recommend just letting the memories and sensations pass on through. Don't pay undue attention to them. By analogy, pus will sometimes drain from a lanced wound, but you wouldn't mourn over the loss of the pus. If extra help is needed to cope with the process, speak with a close friend, or it says professional counselor. I would say talk with the Lord about it. So anyway, there is some counsel with that, with how to make the tea, with how to use this cleanser. And Chaparral, he literally, I'm gonna grab the book here. Chaparral, he gives, in here, he gives, for general usages, standard dose, for a general use for children 11 years to adults, use Chaparral tea 1 to 3 cups per day, or use powder half teaspoon with a full glass of water 1 to 4 times a day. In other words, if you're sick, you're coming down with something, not just as a cleanse, but as something that you're trying to overcome something. He even talks here about using it for pets and other creatures and whatnot. I wanted to talk about, he uses it for abscesses. He shows how to make a poultice using I can't say the herb, slippery elm. Using slippery elm with it to make an awesome poultice for using it for that. It's awesome for alcoholism because of its cleansing, that 21-day, for getting past that. Anemia, allergies, for an antibiotic, for athlete's foot, making a poultice, taking it internally. Blood poisoning, it's a blood purifier. It's awesome for boils, bursitis, cancer, chemical poisoning, colds and flus. It helps with digestion, and female discomfort, for fevers, for fungus. That fungus one really got my attention because I've got poisoned with fungus, and I have struggled with that, and my health has improved tremendously from that point, but it's still not quite perfect, and I've known there was a way to make it perfect, and I hadn't gone back to this book and looked it up, and I had forgotten the power of Chaparral with fungus, because when I studied Chaparral, it's been a long enough time ago, fungus wasn't really something that the majority of us deal with. It wasn't such a huge issue as it's become. Gout. Of course, the first thing with that one is change the diet.
Yeah, get rid of the
meat.
That are causing the problem.
Herpes. It boosts the immune system. Thinking, okay, we all could use that. We're living in a pretty toxic society. It helps the kidneys. It helps the liver flush out. It helps the lymph system.
It's also good for arthritis, and a lot of people are suffering with these restrictions because their joints are so stoved up. So, and what I would say is, if you're scared to do this with the amount he's put in the book, do half the amount. Start out with a weak solution.
Especially if you're really sick and you're not really wanting to. So there's two ways to look at it. If you're really sick and you just want to kind of slowly try to improve your health, start out small and increase. If you're about to tip over and die, well, you might want to hit it really hard, because if you're going to, the alternative is tip over and die or sooner, or get well if you're a little nervous about it. And so in that case, just go for it. Ringworm, just sinusitis.
And on here in the School of Natural Healing by Christopher, he has a Chaparral ointment, and he says that this should be made and kept on hand. I'm going to put it up on the screen if you all want to take a picture of it. Formula.
Got it there? That's the tea.
Chaparral tea, not bitter. So he's saying add elderberry or elderflowers, which are elderberry flowers, and peppermint to it. And then make a tea out of it and strain the herb several times and sweeten with honey and bottle to keep in a cool place.
Okay. Go up to the ointment for them.
The ointment is right here.
There.
So you can take a picture of that.
So Chaparral,
olive oil
and beeswax. 1 ounce to half a cup and half an ounce of beeswax, half a cup of olive oil.
Now, all of the skin issues that Mark spoke to you about could be taken care of with a topical application of the Chaparral.
And I would think, just from seeing that, reading it, what we've recently just read on it, and what we know about it, my first thought would be somebody that was skin cancer. There's something, of course, you need to be doing things on the inside, because any cancer is not, it's in the blood. So cleanse the blood, but at the same time, use it externally, topically on those for healing.
It's in the black, yes. This has Chaparral leaf in it.
Okay.
The black ointment we told you about last week has the Chaparral in it.
You can
as well.
Put it on the deal for in case somebody sees this one. Take the book out of the way. Oh, that worked. Amazing. So Christopher's black ointment has chaparral in it.
Chaparral leaf.
Extra virgin olive oil, chaparral leaf. It's second ingredient. Comfrey root. The comfrey was one that was mentioned with this 10 essential herbs with the using in connection with the chaparral. Red clover, a blossom, mullein leaf, plantain, chickweed, marshmallow, goldenseal, lobelia, poke root, pine tar, and mutton tallow and beeswax. So, and
Good stuff.
by the way, the mutton tallow can come from two different processes on that. You can actually get that externally off of the sheep. When we used to work with the ranch, that was lanolin. That's right. It wasn't the tallow. Sorry, my mistake. So that was lanolin that we got covered in when we were doing. So there's just a little bit about chaparral, the second herb of this 10 important ones. So that can help a lot. And I see somebody else has written up here about the title of book that we're referring. So we have been in multiple books today. We've been in the Health Handbook, second edition there. By this is Louise Tenney, the Health Handbook. Louise Tenney. I'll get that right someday.
And we've been in this one.
We've been in Christopher's School of Natural Healing, the 20th edition. We've been in the 10 Essential Herbs by, you say her name, I can't.
Lalitha
Thomas. Holmes Press. And I actually didn't even get a chance to look back to Eden to see if he talked about it there. But so something I think to finish this all up with that would be really good, that might be really helpful for everybody is like, well, how do you know if what they said in that book is right? And how do you come to a conclusion of, there's so many voices saying so many different things about so many different topics. How do you know what's right? And I'll tell you what we did, because that was what I hit. When Melanie had cancer, I hit that in a quick hurry. I was reading this and it's like, is this right? Is that right? Well, this person says this and that one says that. And one person says, never take lobelia because it's toxic and it'll kill you. And yet this one over here says that lobelia is the thinking herb and it's the most powerful, one of the most powerful herbs. And it's like, what do I do? And I was at a loss. Okay, we'll give Melanie, they're asking for that one again. Just put the info in the chat. Or I could put it up there while I'm talking. We'll just do that. Hang on. I'll get it. I'll shrink it.
Where'd it go? Okay.
There it is. Okay, so there it is on the screen for that one. I think I can blow it up a little bit. So I'm going to go back to how we knew. Just put it centered and move your hands so they can see it.
Sorry, I was trying to get
Go up.
That's an L.
Go up. Up, up, up. There you go. Not so much. Okay, perfect. Now they can see it and write that down. So, how we made our decision as to what's right. Number one, we put everything to the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. That was our number one decision maker. And some people are going to go, well, what does the Bible say about chaparral? Well, in all honesty, I don't believe it does. It does talk about wormwood, though. And it does talk about herbs. So there are some that it talks about figs. It talks about some of these different things. Spirit of prophecy talks about red clover. And I'm just naming these off the top of my head that I'm thinking of. And charcoal and some of these different things. So, yeah, you can put that one over there now. I'll zoom it back so we can hopefully get it all in. Down, there you go. So, what did we do? What we did is we looked for the common denominator. And over time, we learned that, like with Christopher's School of Natural Healing, we learned that if Dr. Christopher said it, it's more than likely we could trust that. We would be able to trust what he said. But
because Dr. Christopher was death on those herbs that are, that if a person takes them, they have a reaction to, but then the body craves. So anything that was addictive, he said, is not good. Stay away from an addictive herb, or one that
so that would be like green tea,
or black tea,
or black tea,
or marijuana. It all these addictive herbs that are a substance that is toxic to the system?
They don't heal, harm instead of healing.
Yeah.
So we looked for the common denominators to start with when we were first new in this whole process of what do we do? How do we know that that's good? Is we looked for multiple sources, and as we studied and as we learned certain ones were more reputable than others, because you can find, especially now, if you search it on the internet, you can find anything. You could prove Chaparral would kill you. You can, and I know you can prove
comfrey.
that.
They say that about comfrey.
They say that about comfrey.
Lobelia.
Yeah. You find all over the internet. Lobelia is very, very
deadly.
Toxic. Even a small amount will kill you. Well, guess what, Melanie?
I've had about 5 pounds
at least, probably 5 pounds of that herb, and you can see the results there. Maybe it
look what they did with hydroxychloroquine, which is simply quinine.
But quinine, we've sad to say,
unfortunately, that's what we gave our son because we were so sick with typhoid fever, we couldn't think straight,
and it nearly
the bugs have gotten so used to quinine, the mosquitoes, that it doesn't bother them anymore.
So they've made the quinine so much stronger.
So they put like 3 doses in one, and unfortunately we didn't know that. And on his 6th day of having it, he fell down in the living room, going from the bathroom back to the couch, and his limbs drew up, and he just started screaming because he could not stretch out his limbs, and he started saying, "Mama, help me!" And long story short, I called the lady, a naturopath that
we
was
were starting to feel a little better, and our minds were coming back.
So I called a lady in Nairobi that we should have gotten a hold of before we even flew home with him sick. But she said, "You gave him quinine, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes, he's on his 6th day." And she said, "No more." And then she told me, put hot towel down his spine and keep that hot towel on till it gets cool, then rub with ice, then go back to hot towel and rub with ice. That was 10 o'clock in the morning, and she told me, do not stop until his limbs relax. And I did that until 6:30 that night. I think it was 6:30, somewhere
constantly
in there. All day long. And I was tired. I was just getting well myself, and so I was exhausted. It was hard to keep going, but I did because he was so atrophied. He just couldn't move anything. He was in a fetal position. And so when he finally started relaxing and fell asleep, then I quit. But the next day she called me and she said, "I'm sorry, I had conference meetings I had to do all day yesterday. How is he?" And I told her, and she said, they've 3 times the dosage of the quinine, which can
quinine, they call it quinine over there.
Which can either mentally derange them, cause them to go mad and lose their mind, or it can cause them to be it shrinks up somehow the takes the blood supply away from the spinal column, and the
body will go up into a fetal position,
and they'll be there forever.
It will stay.
She knew of the hot and cold, and so that's what saved him from being in that
So I would stay away from those. And Ellen White speaks against quinine. And we knew that. We knew that, but we were so sick ourselves that we could hardly even
function, little
move or
thing.
function, and we'd flown home early from the trip.
And he got better through the trip, but of course, once the liver gets full of affected red blood cells with one parasite on each or protozoa on each cell, then they spill out of the liver, and then you get the fever again when they hit the bloodstream. Literally, the way you die of malaria, we found out from a lot of study from having this was your body attacks the red blood cells because they come out with each cell having one protozoa parasite attached to it. And so the body says, this is not a normal cell, and it'll go to killing the red blood cells until there's none left. That's what happens.
Your body can't make them fast enough.
And that's why they get a fever. It's there for 2 or 3 days, and then they get better. And then they get a fever, and that goes until they literally die of lack of red blood cells. That's what happens. So he was on his third trip down with a fever. When the second trip, we flew him home. He was just getting better, and we flew him home. Actually, he was sick until we got to the airport, and then he was able to get up and walk, which I think was interesting, because if he'd have been sick, they wouldn't have let him get on the plane. But he acted normal, so nobody knew. And we flew home.
And it's not contagious from person to person.
Yeah. So
anyway, and that was when we learned the peach leaves, the wormwood and the echinacea mixed in the as a tea.
In fact, in Uganda, in their sugarcane fields, they have gotten to the point where they have all the workers who come to cut the sugarcane in the morning, they will make them drink wormwood tea, so that if they're bit by mosquitoes during the day, they don't come down with malaria. It's literally Uganda's principle or policy that every sugarcane field owner has to supply wormwood tea for their people first thing in the morning.
And yes, it does grow there. We've seen it there.
Yeah.
Well, not in Uganda we've seen it, but we saw it in Kenya.
Yeah.
Can you sweeten it with honey?
Oh yeah, why not? You could try. It's still awful bitter. Then it'd be bittersweet. What a bittersweet experience, huh?
Yes, it's still not pleasant. Nothing pleasant about it.
Right.
But anyway, there is the Chaparral for the day.
Simple food.
What sort of diet should a person eat while doing a 21-day Chaparral cleanse?
I would do something simple, like lentils. They're high in glutathione. They pull the gut back together. They're 10 times as good as bone broth.
I don't know that you'd have to do lentils the whole 21 days, but
for something protein,
just something simple.
And salads. Try and stay away from. I was going to read this.
Stay away from carbohydrates. The pastas. During that time, stay away from things that are harder to digest.
Stay away from anything that tears down the vitality and causes disease.
So processed food.
Be it a poison of food or in water or thoughts, he says. This is one of Hohenstiel's. Mineral oil has been found to drain the fat-soluble vitamins out of the body because it cannot be digested. Thus, it flushes the vitamins out with it. So instead of being an aid to health, it is now recognized by responsible authorities as a menace to health. And then he goes on to say most salad dressings are made with mineral oil because it's cheap. So make your own salad dressing out of cucumbers and cashews and lemon juice or avocados or something like that. Stay away from the store-bought vinegar-filled, mineral oil-filled things that are not going to help your liver while you're trying to do this 21-day cleanse. That's what I would suggest.
Simple. I think the easy summary on that would be no processed food. So in other words, if it comes from a store pre-prepared in any way, tofu, pre-prepared. Prepackaged. Yeah. Veggie foods, whatever. Eat.
Noodles.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't make it in your own kitchen from total scratch, then during that 21-day period, don't eat it.
So lots of, you can do the frozen berries over whole grain breakfast or something. Frozen blueberries, frozen mixed berries. Those are very high in antioxidants and vitamins. Your grains are high in B vitamins. Yeah, simple but healthy, good food.
You know
Real
what?
food.
There was something we missed. It's
2:00. We're supposed to close at 2. It's only. Oh yeah.
We can't leave that
We
out.
can't forget this.
So, in answering a question,
That
we're going to
came
kind of
in.
shift gears now. We're going to talk
And
about.
I wrote the question down, but I left it out on the table out there.
Uh-huh.
Okay, last week somebody asked about, how was that put? I gotta go.
Okay, so somebody asked us a question about the medical society, and I made a statement. I have a news article about how some of these drugs came about that they're using.
That they're using in pharmacia, and how the drugs came about, and SDA's foremost in helping to bring these about. How they got there. So you want me to put this up here?
No, hang on. I got it.
There you
Oh
are.
no, that's
Yes.
you. I want this.
Oh, you want that one? Okay.
I want this one. I'm not going
Okay.
to use the scanner.
Okay.
So I have an article here that it was printed in numerous places. From the best I can find, it was printed first in Los Angeles Times, May 20, 1957.
Old news, but it's just
And
perfect for us today.
the edition that we have here is it was out of the Canadian Union Messenger. I also found
August 7.
Yeah, I also found it in another source. It was actually reprinted later on in another source, but we want to take the time, and I'm going to put it up on the screen, but we're going to read the entire article. It's fairly short, but I think you might be rather surprised at what's there. So, can you see it well enough to read it from that? Yeah? Okay.
Researchers consult witch doctors from Tanganyika to South America for betterment of modern medicine. Special, that one I can't wait, Scope Weekly, Loma Linda, California. The witch doctors of African tribesmen of South America Indians have been called into consultation to make their contributions to modern medicine. Salim A. Farag, PhD, acting director of the Department of Biotechnology,
No, not knowledge, it's
biotoxicology.
toxicology.
Thank you. Of the College of Medical Evangelists here, returning recently with 80 species of plants used as medicines by the Ha and other primitive tribes 550 miles southwest of Lake Victoria in Tanganyika, East Africa. Another scientist, Don Overton, head of plant procurement of CME, brought back 50 species of toxic trees and shrubs from Colombia's Llanos country, including specimens of the yopi tree from which the Goahaibo Indians made intoxicating snuff. Egyptian-born Dr. Farag explains some of the magic medicine plants may make important additions to our healing arts, as have digitalis, morphine, quinine, and rawulfa, all of which came from folk medicine. Civilization is progressing so fast, even in the jungle, that there is danger the art of witch doctoring may be lost. Hundreds of pounds of leaves, branches, trunks, stalks, and roots from the 2 expeditions are stored at CME's unique school of tropical and preventative medicine. Separating, grinding, and analyzing parts of the plants will require years. Well, they've had years. This was 1957. CME physicians at Seventh-day Adventist medical missionary stations in Africa reports that witch doctors used plants to cure illness ranging from schizophrenia to malaria and worms. One plant concoction causes contraction of the uterine muscles, inducing abortion. Many of the botanical medicines are poisons. Poisons can save lives. Proper dosages of poisons can save lives, so we are especially interested in them, said Dr. Farag. Dr. Farag said, we like especially to test plants which indicate biologically active properties with strong reactions. Dr. Farag explains there are two types of witch doctors. One deals in magic and spirits. The other administers medicines made from plants and has a reputation as a healer. It is the latter type that interests physicians. Obtaining the prescriptions usually is very difficult, Dr. Farag said. The formulas are not in writing. They are handed down from father to son as carefully guarded secrets because they provide the means of livelihood. Sometimes the patients refuse to let white doctors treat them unless the witch doctor gives his approval. You must work through the mentalities and beliefs of the people, and in some cases you must follow witch doctor techniques. Occasionally the native treatment is as effective as that administered by our own physicians, he added. He said a native medicine for tapeworm, roots of the Yaruba plant ground up and mixed with water, is as good as the white doctor had.
I'm going to their column. Give us just a moment. Okay, there you go, dear.
For
alertness or
trance. Excuse me. Some native drugs require careful mixing and preparing to be effective as inhalant. The Columbia yopo berry must be mixed with calcium from ground snail shells. Overton said the Guhibo Indians, it's probably Huhibo, I don't know, inhale it to produce keenness of vision and alertness among hunters. As a prophylactic against fever, as a stimulant, or to produce the trance that medicine men require to communicate with spirits. The yopo berry contains at least 5 alkaloids, and all but one have been identified, Overton said. The snuff is being tested as a truth serum. The African abortion medicine is of particular interest to scientists because of its violent and specific action on uterine muscles.
Pause just for a moment. Loma Linda University has been very interested in abortion.
They were doing abortions in the 70s before
a very, very long time. And it's interesting that we would read here that these Adventists are so interested not only in all of these poisons becoming good drugs, but also for abortion. So we'll go back to the article. I had to say that.
Juice from 5 or 6 leaves of a certain plant can produce so strong a reaction it is likely to cause serious injury and sometimes may cause death, Dr. Farag said. Some births held bad luck. Witch doctors prescribe it after ruling that if a woman's child is born, it can bring nothing but bad luck to the tribe. There are native medicines that may be useful in treating mental illness. Members of Dr. Farag's expedition have information that a white doctor diagnosed a tribesman's illness as schizophrenia. A witch doctor administered an herb preparation in diminishing doses. The patient remained semi-conscious. At the end of 3 months, he appeared to be cursed. The mission doctor... Cured, the mission doctor reported. CME's Natural Products Committee selects the most promising plants to be studied first. A 5-year search program is planned with a possible 5-year extension. because it has only 15 scientists available for the big job. CME has issued an invitation to research staffs of universities and pharmaceuticals
Houses.
to participate in this research. So the Adventists let out.
So they're going to the witch doctors to get the witch doctors' formulas so that they can extract
and bring it into
pharmakia.
Yeah.
And Adventists were the leading ones behind this research. Just thought you'd be interested to know where that all came from. And actually, just last night discovered that this was in Los Angeles Times. I didn't realize it was there till last night. And I went looking, but I will have to... they don't have that in the free domain, so I couldn't go after it later. But this is...
Suppose that's where they got the abortion pill? You suppose
Probably.
some of that?
It could be a very, I don't know. It could be possible. It could be possible.
That is so heinous. That is so heinous. It's going to kill both the fetus and the mother. It's already doing that, and they take it.
The paper, that paper. Also, Hohen.
It's baffling.
We found this with Hohen, and he has here on the side a deal put in.
Oh yeah.
What was that article again? What was it in? What publication was that?
Okay, it's Los Angeles Times, May 20, 1957. And I think this is for that one.
That's what I was wondering.
Because the article that I'm holding in my hand is dated June 12, 1957, and it says Scope Weekly. Scope Weekly. I'm not even sure. That's another edition of it. So
the one you read from was L.A. Times.
No, what I read from was Scope Weekly. I'm going to go after this week and see if I can get the
That's
L.A.
the
Times.
August 7th, 1957 article.
Yeah. June 12, 1957
It
is.
came out in the Los Angeles Times May 20, and then June it came out in Canada.
In the Scope Weekly.
In the Scope Weekly for
Well,
Canada.
what was the August 7th, 57 one?
Oh, this is over on the side. Alberta's Canadian Union Messenger, August 7.
I'll read you what he's got here. It
1957.
was another article on this topic, and he's just got a piece of it put in here. He says, this is from the Canadian Union Messenger, August 7, 1957. Dr. G.T. Anderson, president of the College of Medical Evangelists, during the interview disclosed the recent acceleration of research done by his institution due to a grant by the Ford Foundation of more than $1 million. This scientific research revolves around heart disease, cancer, and preventative medicine. An expedition led and staffed by CME is now working in Tanzania, South Africa, to study plants used by natives to cure tropical diseases. So that's why, that one there, they had $1 million grant from the Ford Foundation to go do this. So the Adventists were getting grant money from in 1957 from the world to do this. And from the Vancouver Sun, Friday, August 30, 1957, I have just a little blip of it here. It says, fungus diet drives natives insane. And caught my attention because of the increase of fungal issues that we all have and disease that's getting more and more of an issue. And it says here, samples of a tree fungus believed to be responsible for the recent outbreaks of hysteria and temporary madness among natives are being sent to London for identification. D.N. Ashton, Assistant District Officer, said many natives became hysterical or ran amok in the last week after eating the fungus which grows at the base of trees around this time of the year. And what caught my attention there is with the increase of fungus that we have in our foods, on the ground, there's funguses that are showing up when we were still out west. In the spring, just as the snow was leaving, there was this like fungal growth, all of the big white patches and all over the growth. It kind of and some were orange, looked almost like a spider web of fungus. And so anyway, yeah, there's been a major increase. Oh, and the other thing with connection with that, when Matthias was in some of his classes with school that he was doing online, he learned that high radiation causes an increase in fungus, in fungal growth, high radiation. And that kind of got our attention. We've not studied it out by far in depth at all on this, but increased radiation is causing increased fungal issues. And I don't know the extent of all that. And somebody put in here, should we avoid mushrooms?
They're not a fruit and they're not a vegetable. They're a fungus. They have spores, not seeds within themselves, so they're not a biblical food.
Yet some of them are edible. Yay, I don't like mushrooms. I love mushrooms. I love mushrooms.
He can't eat them, though, without becoming a snot.
If I spence this fungal issue that I've had, if I eat any mushrooms at all,
he just pours.
She says snot, and yes, it's not that I become a bad attitude snot.
No,
I become a sinus snot.
Yeah.
With my sinuses, and so that kind of brought our attention to that. Would I tell you not to eat them? No. Would I tell you that they'll make you sick? Yeah, some of them. Although there's
people eat anything. Today, people are eating anything and everything.
Yes.
It's unbelievable, some of the things, and I can't believe people still eat pork. When it's been revealed what the Chinese are doing with the pork industry in this country.
Yeah.
So, on the subject with the mushroom and whatnot, I would suggest go away from it for a while and see what happens. Go away for 2 or 3 weeks. Don't touch them. Don't eat them, what I'm saying, for several weeks, a month, and then try it and see how your body responds and see what happens. You might just discover a health issue that you've been dealing with is resolved by eliminating it, or it may not be an issue for you. Anyway, so there's a little bit more information as to where a lot of our drugs are coming from. And of course, a drug is nothing more than an herb that's had the chemicals extracted and or chemically synthesized
like
to match.
Valium, it's from valerian, but it's very, very highly processed and
it's only a
concentrated,
part.
it's just a portion of it.
And it's a portion. See, where they get into problems with their drugs is they chemically extract out, or in other ways, extract out a certain portion of this. And even if they don't chemically engineer it and make something that looks just like it, that chemical, they have extracted it from the herb, but the herb has a whole. It's a balance. There's things there working with those that chemical property that becomes the natural healer. And so when you extract it out, you're now dissecting it from the way God has put it.
Right. And because God has created everything in order. His food and his herbs and everything that he's given us to eat has a synergistic effect with everything else that he created.
Yes.
And if he didn't create it, it's junk.
So there is
it was messed with after he created
a calcium In fact, it's the best calcium that you can possibly get, and it's in sesame seeds. And the reason it's so, if they took and extracted that calcium out of those sesame seeds, they would discover that, sorry, I was reading the text. Okay, you read, I'll talk. Yes. So they would discover, though, it wouldn't work as well. And the reason why is because sesame seeds also has a vitamin T. Never been able to pronounce it. You can look it up online if you really want to know what it says. That's in it. And that particular vitamin allows the calcium go into the cells to do its work in a much greater way, much more effective. We've seen osteoporosis cured from using toasted ground sesame seeds. And we've mixed it with sun seeds and a few other things. Melanie's got a whole... She calls it her healthy sprinkles. They taste good.
I call it my
osteogone
sprinkles.
Osteogone sprinkles as well, because it cures the osteoporosis.
It fills the bones. You can't get holy bones when you eat it all the time.
And so that's why chemically or extracting these things out doesn't work, because God puts what we need in that plant, in that sesame seed, so that that calcium can be absorbed into the body. Okay.
One last thing. I mentioned a couple weeks ago how vitamin D is ergot of rye is used coupled with the vitamin D to synthesize it and get it into the body so it can be used by the body. But the ergot of rye is a black mold and it's very highly toxic. A lady called me this week and said, I looked online. You said go online. I looked and I can't find it. And I'm like,
we've been sharing this now for
We've been sharing it for several months.
No, it's over a year.
It's been over a year.
Just a little over a year.
So I said, okay, I'll find it for you. I went online. I looked and I looked and I looked. And guess what?
It's gone.
It's gone. So they are not removing the internet searches from us. They're removing the information when somebody brings it to light. You can't find it. Well, it does say, I looked up LSD and ergot of rye, and it says, well, LSD is made off of such and such, and I can't remember now what that chemical is, that is the same kind of compound.
It's
similar to as found in ergot of rye. In other words, they're kind of admitting, and this same thing happened when our middle child was damaged by childhood disease shots at 18 months, and he was struggling with his health when he was small. I would try and get him to eat bananas, and he would refuse them. And one day, after much coaxing, he took a bite, and he started crying. He said, Mama, I just don't want to eat it. Every time I eat it, it makes me sick. And I was like, yeah, right.
It's just a banana.
It's just a banana.
You need it. You got to have potassium.
Yeah, I said you got to eat your potassium. So he ate it, and guess what? He did get sick that day, and I thought, what is up with this? So I mentioned it to a friend of mine, and she said, I got an article offline. I read an article. I'll bring it to you. So she printed it offline, and this was clear back in what, 98, 99?
Yeah.
She printed it out and brought it to me offline. And it showed how they had been inoculating banana trees with childhood disease shots because Italy and Argentina and Switzerland would not vaccinate their children with the inoculation because they knew how toxic they were, how full of mercury and heavy metals they were. And they didn't want autistic children like we have trouble with here in the United States. And so they would not inoculate their children. Well, they got to thinking, okay, how can we get these in these stubborn nations and get their children vaccinated? And so they found they could put it in the bananas, and those bananas, the banana trees, there was enough of the vaccinations in the bananas that if a person had a healthy diet of bananas, they would be thoroughly vaccinated. And so I read all of this information about it, And I told our son, you don't have to eat bananas anymore. In fact, we didn't buy bananas for 12, 15 years, something like that.
We still pretty much don't. We use the
we use the little fingerling
ones.
Once in a while. I get bananas, but I try and make sure they're organic. If that's any comfort to us, we know what they do with organics. But they're not supposed to mess with the plant when it's an organic, but I'm not sure that they don't. So, long story short, about 8 or 10 years went by, and somebody said, why don't you eat bananas? And I said, well, I'll show you. And they had a computer, and we went online and we started looking. And guess what? It was admitted. I couldn't find all the information I had once had and gotten rid of because we'd moved. I couldn't find all of that information, pages and pages of all this intricate stuff of how they had inoculated the trees and the measured form in the bananas, etc. What I did find was that they had thousands of lawsuits from worldwide from the inoculation of the bananas and the children being affected by it. And so they admitted that they had experimented with this on trees and found it quite successful. But all that information on what they had actually done was gone. And so just if we tell you something, look it up tomorrow, the very next day. Don't wait. Because they're listening to what's being stated. And if anything negative comes up against their plans and their ways, then they're removing it from the internet so that people can't find this stuff. So sorry about that. But Mark just found.
I was looking for something else.
But he just came across the vitamin D with ergot of rye.
Yes.
Okay, here's what Google said weeks back. He's getting it on a...
Give me a moment. I've got to take it off of my computer and put it onto a different computer.
So here is what it used to say. He'll try and get this over.
Give me just a moment. I think... Yeah.
More?
I was looking to see if I had any more on that. I don't think there is. Okay, so where do we go there?
Yeah. So... Mostly pharmaceuticals come from petrochemicals. Yes. And anything from the, like I said, mineral oil, anything from the petroleum, and they use it. All your food colorings are off of petroleum products. When I have a person come and say, please help me get over cancer, I sit down with them and I say, get off of the petroleum products. Your food dyes, the colorings that make your food change color, all of those are petroleum products. Margarines sometimes are off of mineral oil and petroleum product. All of that stuff should not be put in the body. It causes cancer. So those petrochemicals, yes, they're very deadly. They're man-made chemicals and patented, yes. Extracts from herbs couldn't be patented and be changed with high price. Well, they are extracting some things from herbs and they're calling it supplements. Right, Mark?
Oh, that's what most supplements are, yes.
And so they've been jimmied with once again. So we like to go to the whole plant that God gave us that
that's why we're talking about the whole herbs.
Right, the whole herb.
Okay, so here's the...
Take a picture of this.
So National Institutes of Health.gov. So ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Vitamin D in ergot of rye, PMC. That was just a screenshot that I took here earlier this last year. And then here's another screenshot that I did. LSD is manufactured from...
Lysergic acid, which occurs naturally in the ergot fungus that grows on wheat and rye. LSD is the model hallucinogenic and is used recreationally for its ability to alter human perception and mood. So both of them, you could have found it then, but now it's.
And you can see
nigh
that I
on
searched
impossible.
ergot of rye and LSD, and that was what came up with Google. Just right at the very top of the page that was searched. But
These have been removed.
things are changing.
Yes, quickly. So.
And I may have this whole article here with the vitamin D in ergot of rye, but there's some proof so that you can see that
It was there.
it was there.
we did look it up. Now, I don't know.
And where we learned about that was from some doctors back in the 60s that were exposing this.
Yes.
And now they're saying that that things have changed and it's not being made that way. They've found that there's better ways. So maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We'll let you decide. Carol, Ann?
Hiya. Just out of interest, using a different... Can you hear me?
Almost.
Almost, yes.
Okay. I don't know. Have you tried searching using DuckDuckGo? In other words, does it depend on your search engine?
It might. I
Yeah.
haven't tried DuckDuckGo. I know there's a lot more freedom. Somebody told me here not
Although
long
I think
ago on
that
DuckDuckGo.
one particularly is actually owned by Google.
Oh, is it?
I think so. I know there was several. Google is buying out these other engines, and which all ones I've not kept up with.
DuckDuckGo has been acquired by Google. There's another one. It's called FreeSpoke. FreeSpoke.com.
Okay.
That's one I've started using. I'm not sure about that one either, but just whatever you use, just watch it. And every once in a while compare what you're looking up with the other two that I know of. And there's even another one. I tried it for a little bit, but it wasn't very functional. It wasn't very functional.
Do your searches. We don't want to get into all that on Sabbath too much, but there is a possibility that some of that may still be there and it's just being boycotted, blocked, or whatever. And anyway, I think we ought to wind it up and call it done for that. If I give you too much information, you'll be on overload. And so let's have a prayer to close. Melanie, you want to pray?
Our Father in heaven, as we come before your throne in the most holy place of the sanctuary above, by faith in the third angel's message, we are grateful for our Savior, who has pled our cause with groanings that cannot be uttered. Many of us, Lord, were raised in a church that was supposed to tell us the truth about the world and pharmaceuticals and all of these things that we've had to learn on our own. We plead for your mercy for your people. We have been in gross darkness, Lord, for so long, and yet this information was given, like we read today, 1957. It was given to the people, but we've somehow been asleep, Lord. But I pray that, as your word says, my people will be willing in the day of my power. I pray that you will find willing hearts and receptive hearts to the message of truth. May we each one fight the good fight of faith and lay hold of eternal life through the power of the indwelling Spirit of Jesus in us. Help us, we plead, for without you we can do absolutely nothing. We thank you for this Sabbath day. We thank you for the fellowship we've been able to have with one another, the things we've learned. And I just pray for these people, Lord, that they will each continue to witness in their sphere this week with all those that you put in their path. And may this third angel's message, may this loud cry go quickly and swiftly, one-on-one, as you told us it would go. And we thank you for giving us a part in this work. You could have finished this job a long time ago with holy angels who have been in your presence, but you chose to use us. We thank you and bless you and praise you, Lord. And we ask that you will bless us this new week. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.